Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for joining me for today's video. In it, I'm going to go over the Saturday night divisional round game between the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to talk about offenses, defenses, coaching, and special teams in it. I'm going to give you a full recap and reaction, talk about some of the key plays, what I saw and pulled from these games, and what we can expect moving forward. If you guys disagree with any of my takes, please drop those comments down below. I want to get the conversation started. That is what it is all about. If you are new to the channel, please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means so much to me. It helps me out a bunch. I'm looking to get my first 200 subscribers. With that said, done and out of the way, let's get into this Relentless Rundown. Freezing temperatures meant a low-scoring, hard-nosed game was almost certainly imminent, and that is exactly what we ended up getting. Honestly, this game was really hard for me to watch for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, being a Vikings fan, I hate the Packers. That's just how it is. I can't help it. And I will admit that I saw very little chance of the 49ers being able to pull this game out. They had no business being in this game, and they played like it, at least on the offensive end, for most of the night. But in the NFL, we know the tide can turn in an instant, and unfortunately for Green Bay fans, and to my delight, it did. My biggest questions coming into the game for Green Bay, what would that offense look like in these weather conditions? And as the heavily favored team, at least as far as I'm concerned, how long would they allow the 49ers to hang in it? For San Francisco, where would the offense come from? And could the defense, which had been playing absolutely fantastic up front as the season drew to a close, continue to keep their offense in it? We are going to start with the Green Bay Packers on offense. And with how the game started, I was thinking I was spot on in how one-sided this game was going to be. Davante Adams had 3 catches for 35 yards on the opening drive, and the Pack got off to that blazing start, ending a 10-play, 5.5-minute drive with a 6-yard touchdown run by A.J. Dillon. It would be the only time that Green Bay found the end zone. Their second drive was promising, but was prematurely ended by a fumble by Marcedes Lewis in San Francisco territory. That play became absolutely massive because it stunted the seemingly unstoppable momentum that the Packers had built up to that point. The Packers would go 3 and out over the next 2 possessions, and they would not score in the next 6. They finally broke that streak on their first possession of the 4th quarter. Rodgers was 6 for 6 on that drive, and that ended in a 33-yard field goal by Mason Crosby, and it made it 10-3 Packers. They were the last points that Green Bay would score. Davante Adams was his usual stellar self. He finished with 90 yards on 9 catches, but he did not get any help whatsoever from the other wideouts. It was merely a one-man show, and it slowed down severely after that awesome opening drive. Allen Lazard caught 1 ball for 6 yards, and the only time that Marcedes Lewis caught a ball, it ended in that fumble that changed the course of the game. In all, 18 out of Rodgers' 20 completions in the game went to Adams or Aaron Jones, whose 129 yards receiving actually led the team. It was mind-boggling to think that a team that had struggled in the secondary could so easily funnel targets and shut down Rodgers and his top 10 scoring offense, to be frank. The ground game never got going for the Packers. There was little room to operate, and when holes appeared, they closed quickly. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, one of the best 1-2 punches in the backfield in the entire league, combined to rush 19 times for just 66 yards. They were completely stymied. The wannabe MVP Aaron Rodgers was underwhelming. He finished with just 225 passing yards and a laughable QBR of 19.4. After watching him over my 15 years demolish the Vikings, I was expecting so much more here. He couldn't seem to get the gears turning once they slowed down, and he looked frustrated often. I am unsure if he didn't trust his receivers, they were never open, or he just didn't have the time to find them. It was probably a combination of the 3, but to not spread the ball around at all made it far too easy on San Francisco. It was quite a way to go out, and it'll be one to forget if it is the last time that he starts in green and yellow in Lambeau. Rodgers was 0-3 against San Francisco coming into the game in the playoffs, and he was not able to break free of that here. For the Packers defense, Zadarius Smith finally made his return, and he immediately made a big impact. He sacked Jimmy Garoppolo on the 49ers' first possession. The Packers had 4 sacks in the game, and all of them came on third down. They also racked up 8 tackles for loss as they clawed to maintain their slim lead. There was really nothing else that you could have asked for from this defense. They helped Jimmy Garoppolo look like he was a middle schooler out there on the field, consistently harassing and confusing him, which led to that lone interception. They did all of that, and they still succeeded in stifling the league's 7th best rushing attack coming in. You had to almost feel bad for the defense in getting that out with how they played. Almost. To the special teams and coaching for Green Bay, and that special teams was absolutely dreadful, and they cost Green Bay this game. Not only did they leave 3 points on the board in allowing a field goal to get blocked, but they also surrendered the game's biggest play while trying to punt out of their own end zone with just under 5 minutes to go. Talanoa Hufanaga picked up the block punt by Jordan Willis, and yes, I think I said that right, by the way, and he waltzed untouched into the end zone to tie the game up at 10. Special teams play is all about discipline and coaching, and clearly those things were lacking, so a big part of this loss has to fall on the feet of Matt LaFleur, who became the first coach in NFL history to win 39 games in his first 3 seasons. I kept thinking as the game went on that Green Bay was going to change it up somehow and make some adjustments to get going after easily moving the ball early on, but that just never materialized. It begs the question, why couldn't the Pack find a way to score more than 10 points with so many weapons and an MVP calling the shots? Those regular season wins did nothing to help Green Bay when it mattered most, yet again. Let's change gears to the 49ers, and I'm going to do my best to check myself. I'm going to try to be as nice as possible, but boy, is that going to be hard when talking about the 49ers offensively. Here goes nothing. San Francisco had negative 11 yards on their first 4 possessions. On the 3rd possession, Garoppolo threw 2 of his best balls of the game. I give him credit for that. Each of them were dropped. One of them by George Kittle, which would have been a huge completion for a first down. And on the very next play, one to Juwan Jennings, which was again, he couldn't come down with it for the 49ers as they went 3 and out. They started this game going 3 and out 4 consecutive times. Their first down came with under 4.5 minutes left to go until halftime. They did not score their first points of the game until over 6 minutes had expired in the 3rd quarter. Jimmy Garoppolo started for 5, and he did not complete his first pass until 6:30 to go until halftime, but even that wasn't bad enough for him. On the Niners' last drive in the 2nd quarter, with under a minute remaining and San Francisco with a 1st and goal, Jimmy evaded pressure and then he tried to force a throw while fouling away from it. The ball was picked off by Adrian Amos, and Garoppolo was a pitiful 3 for 9 for 48 yards and a pick at halftime, taking precious points away once again from the 49ers. It was another inexplicable throw from a quarterback who has made a bad habit of doing just that, and he got away with at least 2 more of those later in the game that could have easily been intercepted. With 9:12 left in the 4th quarter, he was 7 out of 14 for 75 yards. He nearly pitched the ball away at midfield as the Niners were trying to get in field goal position to win it, and they did not trust him enough to throw the ball with the game on the line as they ran the ball on 3rd and 7 from the Packers' 39-yard line with a minute to go. I mean, this is your starting quarterback in the NFL, San Francisco. Really. For as much as Troy Aikman and Joe Buck wanted you to believe it throughout Saturday's broadcast, I am not buying it. I wasn't back in week 6 when Trey Lance should have kept the job, and I am certainly not after he tried to throw the game away against the Cowboys. I mean, really, the only difference in this game is that he was not even allowed to throw the ball enough to give the game away. He finished 11 out of 19 for a measly 131 yards and that pick, and a laughable QBR of under 12. But enough about Jimmy. I'm getting all worked up. Let's move to the running game. It struggled just like the entire offense did, and San Francisco finished with 106 yards while averaging 3.7 yards per carry as a team. Elijah Mitchell found no space, and he averaged 3 yards per tote, and he had 56 yards on the ground after racking up 80 or more rushing yards in nearly every game during the Niners' 10-game run to the playoffs. George Kittle helped a little, but his 63 yards receiving led the team on 4 catches. The offense basically consisted of Deebo Samuel, who did everything and then some while playing with some sort of lower leg injury. Samuel consistently made something out of nothing with the ball in his hands, and he was a terror to bring down. Whether it was in the backfield as a running back or catching the ball as a receiver, Deebo delivered. He returned the second half kickoff to midfield, and then he took 2 screens for 30 yards, shredding would-be tacklers along the way to gift the Niners with their first 3 points of the game. Then, with the game on the line in the final possession, he caught a 15-yard slant before carrying 3 straight times for 13 yards, the dagger being a heart and soul run through the teeth of that Packers defense, where he broke 3 tackles to gain 10 yards on 3rd and 7. It was magnificent and set up the game-winning 45-yard field goal by Robbie Gould, who is still perfect in the postseason. Enough of that. On to San Francisco's defense, and first and foremost, Fred Warner being healthy enough to start in this game was a huge boost not only on the field, but mentally for San Francisco as well. He is an all-pro talent, and he completely changes what this defense is able to bring to the table. The Niners did a 180 after struggling over Green Bay's first 2 possessions, and they smothered the Packers for almost the entire rest of the game. They forced Rodgers to be uncomfortable all game, and he was clearly frustrated by having to scramble so much. A lot of that was the combination of Nick Bosa and Arik Armstead, who could not be contained. The 49ers had 5 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, and just continued to hang in there, bringing an amazing amount of physicality to the field. They swarmed to the ball, they tackled soundly, and they only gave up 1 big play all day, and that one did not end up costing them. Everything else was completely shut down, and it was extremely impressive to see a team that averaged almost 27 points a game coming in to be held to just 10. If they can keep up this level of play, they'll at least make the Rams work for it next week. A few things to talk about on the coaching side of things for San Francisco. One of the most questionable coaching decisions came from Kyle Shanahan with under a minute to go before halftime. Now they're down 7-0 here. He calls his first timeout after the Packers picked up nothing on first down. This gave Green Bay an opportunity to be more aggressive, as they initially seemed content to run up the clock and go into halftime with that 7-0 lead. 2 plays later, on 3rd down and 3, Green Bay made them pay with a broken coverage 75-yard catch and run by Aaron Jones, who could have actually scored had Rodgers been able to hit him in stride. Shanahan was bailed out as that 39-yard field goal attempt by Mason Crosby was blocked by Jimmy Ward, but I do not understand him taking the timeout given the circumstances. I get that Green Bay was backed up, and it was a quick 3-and-out that would have given the ball back with solid field position. But you have to consider, with how poorly this offense had been playing, he should have desperately wanted to get to the locker room and gladly taken that 7-point deficit. Most certainly, when you think about the team's inability to throw to the ball or to really trust his quarterback at all at that point. It should have cost him 7 points, but special teams ended up saving the day. I was also not a big fan of his 4th and 1 call late in the 4th quarter. The Niners had the ball in the red zone. They were down 7-3 and driving. I believe the best decision was to go for it. There is no doubt about that. But to run a dive, which for whatever reason seems to be a theme that is not working in the playoffs. By the way, that was questionable. You had the most success running the ball to Deebo Samuel on the outside, but instead you give it to Elijah Mitchell up the gut, who was stuffed. For one of the brightest minds offensively in the league, it was a weak call to say the least. This was a pretty ugly offensive game as each team averaged less than 5 yards per play. They combined for a paltry 475 yards of offense. Weather clearly was a factor in it, but the teams combined for 302 passing yards and each averaged under 4 yards a carry. In a game with 23 total points scored, the smallest detail matters, and allowing a field goal to be blocked and a punt block for a touchdown is details that Green Bay is going to be thinking about about for a very long time. At the end of the day, though, you have to think that the reigning MVP would be able to put up more than 10 points. You'd be wrong, but you'd be right to think it. To answer my questions coming in, Green Bay's offense quickly crumbled after the turnover on that second possession, and they never were able to recover from it. They allowed San Francisco to hang in long enough to give the game away. On the Niners side, the offense was completely and totally reliant on Deebo Samuel with a sprinkle of George Kittle. The defense shut the door after the Packers' opening possession, and the special teams unit was able to pull off that wild upset. One final thought. I like to save the best for last, so here it is. If I am Coach Shanahan, I cannot possibly start Jimmy Garoppolo next week. He's been a dumpster fire far too often, and he should have cost you both of these playoff games. You clearly have no faith in his abilities, and when you do, he proves why you shouldn't. I do not care how green or how raw you believe Trey Lance to be. He is an instant upgrade, period. You cannot tell me with a straight face that Trey Lance would not be able to do exactly what Jimmy Garoppolo does. In fact, he could do more and bring greater success. He gives your offense a chance at another dimension. I mean, how hard could it possibly be to hand the ball off to Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel 30 times a game? Seems pretty easy. Lance opens up new avenues of moving the ball, and even Ben Roethlisberger can throw a better ball based on what we saw against the Packers. Whatever is holding you back, whether that be ego or a bet from the preseason that you don't want to lose, do the right thing and bench the bum. Give Trey and your team a fighter's chance against the Rams, or you will lose. Full stop. Sorry about that, had to get it out. Thanks for bearing with me. That is the end of my video today. I really hope you guys enjoyed the content and you learned something. If you disagree with any of my takes, please drop those comments down below. I want to be able to engage with you. That is what this is all about. If you are new to the channel, if you haven't done it yet for whatever reason, if you are enjoying the content, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. It means the world to me. It helps me out a ton as I battle to get my first 200 subscribers. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opatz, and we'll see you next time.